In this lab, you're going to learn all about modifiers, which are almost like adding effects or layer styles in a program like Illustrator or Photoshop. They remind me of effects in those programs because there's something that you can modify. You can take an object and change it, and you can also remove the effect or alter it in the future. So they're editable. So we're going to create a little dining table with dessert sitting on it, a little strawberry, little piece of cake here, and a plate. And in the process of creating the project, you're going to use mirror, subdivision, Boolean, and screw modifiers. And this one, by the way, we're going to start with an existing file. So go ahead and open up modifiers blend, and you'll see that it starts with half a table. Let me go ahead and open the file. So it looks like this at first. And we're going to see that the mirror modifier can help us take something like this and make it symmetrical. So there's lots of cases where you can just create or model half of an object and then mirror it to create the other half. I also want to point out, if you look at the outliner in the scene collections, that there's more objects here that we don't need yet. I just want to point out they're here, but the eyeballs are turned off, so they're hidden to start with, which is fine. You can go ahead and leave those with visibility turned off. We'll just turn them on when we're ready to work with those objects. So you should start with just the table itself visible in our viewport area. So that's the setup. Let's get started. So to create the other half of the table, we're going to add a modifier called mirror. So I'm in object mode for this, and I'll just go ahead and select the table. And I'm going to focus on the property panel down here on the right hand corner. And there's all these little icons on the left to take you into different features. So far I've been in object properties, but just below it is an icon of a little wrench. And if I click that, it's taking me to the modifier property section. So that's the main thing, is you just click that icon to switch down to modifiers. And then where it says add modifier, you can drop into the list and decide what you want to choose. We're going to use mirror. So go ahead and click on that. And then you'll see options appear for that particular modifier. We want to mirror along a certain axis. And this is kind of interesting. If you start to play with it, you can see it repeating in different ways. So I think Y is what we really want to make it flip along the Y-axis. And you can have it go in more than one direction. It's actually fun to see what it looks like with the Z-axis, where there's a mirror copy that is repeated vertically, almost like a reflection in a pond. That's kind of a crazy looking table though. So I'm going to turn off mirroring in the Z-axis. I don't really need X-axis either. If you look carefully, it's affecting the width of the legs to repeat them. So I think for us, just the Y-axis is really the only one that we need to complete the table. And then a good thing to know about this feature is that it is completely editable, that if you work on the original object, it will continue mirroring. I'll also point out a few things. There's a little icon that looks like a monitor, and you can use that to control whether you're previewing the other half or not. And I think I'll keep it turned on so I can preview and see live the modifier take effect. But just for example, what if I wanted to make changes to this? If I switch to a feature like rotate and turned it, the mirror is happening live. So if I rotate the original, the mirror is rotated too. I'm going to undo that, by the way, to keep the table level. A different example is, what if I chose scale and started to maybe make a change to the, I'm going to drag the red handle to change the width. So it's like an adjustable table. But what's interesting is, technically I'm affecting the original object, and then the modifier is still taking effect and including any of the adjustments. So that's a great feature, very flexible. If I select this, I want to remind you that I might be viewing things like other properties at some point, so I can always click to bring back up modifiers and have the table selected if I want to return to these options. So the idea I can change the settings anytime is really good, and then also I can turn it off. If you decide you don't need the feature at all, you can hit the little X to remove the modifier. And think about how that could impact your projects. Lots of you might be planning something symmetrical. So this plants the idea that you could just create half and then use mirror as a modifier in your project. Let's go ahead and find the strawberry object, and you can turn on its visibility. And then let's move it so it feels like it's on top of the table. I'm going to go ahead and look for move. Let me select that, and I'll just pull along the Z-axis to bring it up. It's actually fun to see it go through the table. So let's bring that up anywhere above the table. And then we can make this feel like it's three-dimensional too. There's another one where half of the object has been generated. But why don't you practice using the mirror modifier to go ahead and give this its other half. So down in the property panel, in the modifier section, you can even check here that I have strawberry selected. And then I'm going to go ahead and mirror a second time. And then you can experiment. It looks like the X-axis is going to work for me, but again, you can always play with the preview a little bit to make sure you're getting what you need from it. Great. The next object I'm going to generate is going to become a plate. And I want to show you a modifier titled screw that's perfect actually for spinning something in a circular fashion to create round objects. Let's start by going up into the outliner, into your scene collection, and find plate slice and go ahead and show it. It's a hidden object right now, but you can turn on its visibility. And it's down here in the bottom underneath the table. Just want to make sure you can see it. It's kind of funny if you're at perfect side view using maybe the X option or rather Y, it looks like it just disappeared. But it's because it just doesn't have any thickness to it yet. I'm going to go back and maybe preview this so you can see it in a more dimensional way. And this was made by generating a plane and then using edit mode to select one line and then extrude it, just as a little FYI. And then we're going to use screw to make it spin around to actually complete the plate. You can do a few little things. I'm going to go ahead and just bring it up so it's above the table. For that, let me view it like this. I'll go ahead and select and use move. And let me just pull that higher up. I'll switch back to select tool. And at this point, I want to go ahead and add the modifier. So I can select the object, make sure you're in the modifier properties section with a little icon that looks like a wrench. And then go to the modifier list. And I'm going to choose screw this time to twist something in a circular motion. And it looks like the plate already, but let's take a good look at settings over here under modifier. And I'll introduce some of them to you. First of all, 360 means it's going all the way around a circle, but you could vary that. For example, maybe there's something you're creating where you want it to feel like there's an opening on one side. So you're not limited to 360 degrees. 180 would be half the object. And I do want it to go all the way around to make the complete plate. So I think I'll just double click and type in 360 and hit enter. I was dragging there earlier, but you can double click and type in values as well. And then screw is kind of interesting. It's set to 0 for our plate. But to show you what that's about, why don't you play with it and set a value? It's funny, pictures really explain things. If you set a screw value, it's twisting up, almost like a spiral stairway or shell that's twisting. So if we do want it to remain level and not change elevation at all as it moves around the circle, then I can take the screw value back to 0. And just keep thinking, how can you use these features in your project? So let's just pretend you wanted to do something like a stairway that spiraled. You could set the screw value to create lift and elevation. And then, by the way, iterations could tell it to continue beyond 360. Now I'm going to go back and reset it to the recipe I need for the plate. So I think for that, just one iteration is, or one trip around the circle, you could say, is going to work. And I want it to be set to 0 for the screw value. So there's no change in elevation. Those are interesting, I think, to think about what your possibilities could be. Let's see. And then steps viewport and render is talking about how many pieces were generated and how smooth it is. And I want to encourage you to embrace keeping some of your shapes fairly simple and kind of low poly. One of the reasons I recommend that is that you may run into file size issues if you generate objects that have too many surfaces. But having said that, you could experiment with this value. If I go up a little bit higher, it does look smoother. So I think I'm still going to allow it to be a little choppy, but maybe a few more segments than there were originally. Render will impact the final image. And it's also possible to have something render at higher quality than you're previewing if you want. But I think I'll set mine to the same number so that what I see now is also what would be produced later if I rendered an image from the document. So screw, really useful for round objects and even things that twist. And you can practice using the screw modifier on the cup slice. We'll kind of do a similar thing to the plate. I'm going to go ahead and show the cup slice object. Let me choose move, and I want to just pull it up above the table. And then I think I'll move it along the x-axis too, just so it's sitting on the table but not on top of the plate. Check my view a little bit. I'll go to the side view by clicking Y, and then I can position it a little bit better. Might also move my plate down so it looks like it's touching the table. It's so helpful to change your view frequently. Like even my plate looks like it's about to fall off the table, but I think I can push it over a little bit more. So checking your work in multiple views is pretty good. Now, whenever you're ready, you can select this little slice and try to use the screw modifier to make it into a cup. It's the same kind of concept where I want to have the angle go 360, so it's all the way around. I don't need screw for this, so that can be set to 0 in one iteration. I'll just use a little few more segments up. So I hope you're liking the modifiers. Start to see how handy they could be for your projects. The next step is that I'm going to add a new shape and kind of make it into a cake that'll sit on the plate here. So I can go over to add mesh, and we could use a cylinder as a starting shape. And then we'll work on it a little bit. I think I'll pull it up higher just so it's easier to see. And I can do a final position when I'm done, but I'm just going to pull it up here right now. And then that's kind of a big cake. Let's go ahead and use scale. and I'm going to make it more of a shallow size. And then I can also compare it to my plate. I think it could be smaller. Actually undo for a step. I started to grab the X handle, but I think to keep it round, I could adjust the little square in between X and Y. Remind you of that one, because then it's adjusting X and Y together. It'll keep its round shape up. And I just want to make sure it's smaller than the plate. That looks fine to me. I'll zoom in a little closer. At this point, I want to add a bevel to it, so it looks slightly softer on the edge, more cake-like. And you might remember that when we were in edit mode, we used bevel tool on the last lab. But I think sometimes it's better to use the bevel modifier. The main difference is that if I use bevel tool, it's permanently creating a new surface and it's hard to adjust the amount later. But if you use a modifier, you can always make adjustments to the value or even remove the bevel at any time in the future. So I think in general, it's probably better in a lot of cases to bevel using the modifier. Let's go ahead and select the cake, and I'll go down to add modifier in properties, and I'm looking for bevel. Choose that. So I can see how it looks right there. And then you can experiment by dragging on the bevel amount just until it looks good to you. If you want to type in a measurement, I'm using 0.15. And that looks good. The next step is going to be kind of interesting. I want to cut a piece out of the cake. And there's a modifier that can actually create holes or kind of merge shapes together. So this one will be a few steps. First, I want to go ahead and find the triangle in the scene collection and make it visible. And this is a flat shape right now. And we're going to extrude it to give it thickness. So you can switch into edit mode. Make sure you're in face select. And then I'll click on the triangle selected, and then we're going to extrude to give it thickness. And what you want to do is make it thicker than the cake itself. And we're going to use this to cut a little hole into it in a way. So we go ahead and extrude that. And then I think I'll go ahead and switch back to object mode. And I'm going to move this up. It might take me a minute to position it. I'm going to move it up and scale it. And the main idea is to place it where you wish you were cutting the piece out. So again, I'll do things like move it. And it's really big right now. Oops, let me choose that triangle again. So let me scale it also. So again, it's kind of a funny concept, but where I'm placing this is going to become a hole. And you'll see I'm changing the view a lot to help me work on this. Let me go ahead and scale that. It could be a little bit thinner. Oops. So that looks good. I'm going to, again, sounds crazy, but where I'm headed with this is this object's going to become a hole as it intersects the other shape using a modifier. I'm ready now to turn the triangle into a hole. So this is sort of a interesting one, I think. Notice that it's the cake that I'm going to select. First, it's the object that I cut into, or the one that I'm performing the operation on, you could say, that gets selected. And then I'm going to go into the add modifier list, and it's called Boolean. It's right underneath bevel. So I select Boolean. And I can By the way, I can toggle close bevel if I want to make the modifier list a little bit leaner. And then in the Boolean section, down where it says object, you need to select the object you're interacting with. And you can either use this little eyedropper tool, or you can click on the object square and just choose an item in the list. If you want to use the eyedropper, then you want to go over and click on the object. It's going to become the thing that's interacting with your object. So just keep in mind I had the cake selected, added Boolean, and then I'm choosing the object down here. And then here are your options. Union would tell it that it's merging together, like making a new object out of those pieces. Intersect is leaving only the parts that overlap. Difference is what I want. That's the one that's going to create a hole. Only little detail is I actually need to hide the triangle. It sounds funny, but it is making a hole, but the triangle still exists right now. But I'm just going to go up and hide it. And then you can see the final result. It's interesting. And the pieces still exist. They're editable. For example, if I resized the triangle now, it would just adjust the size of the hole. We're making progress. And then I could, by the way, I could do more positioning work. These are kind of floating in the air while I've been working on them. But I can take my move tool and start to bring that down and over. My strawberry is a little bit enormous. I can select that and bring it up and make it smaller with scale. And I could probably even use rotate tool to turn that. So you can do some of those little kind of finessing steps. It's funny, I keep forgetting to check my views to help me with positioning. Good practice though, use move. And I like the strawberry kind of actually being off. I can go to this view to get the heights. One thing that's funny is I had my triangle hidden, so I've forgotten to move the triangle as well. But I'll just go ahead and pull that down. It's very funny because the modifier still takes effect. I just need to select both next time, move them together, or put them into a collection. It's probably a good idea. So we're just going to try one more modifier called subdivision surface. We're almost done with the exercise. I'm going to zoom in and focus on the strawberry object a little bit. And it really doesn't look round like an organic object. And even if we're working with low poly shapes in order to keep your computer running more efficiently, it might be nice to have some softer or more organic shapes. So I'd like to show that you could select something like the strawberry and then add a modifier to it. And I'm going to try subdivision surface. Let's bring this up. And the concept is that it can divide the surfaces and basically create more. I want to caution you, though, that you don't try to make it say perfectly smooth. This could be something that creates excessive file sizes. So be a little bit cautious, or even sometimes it can cause you to crash. And then you might go down, having given you that warning, then you might go down to the levels viewport and experiment with increasing that value gradually. So by just increasing it by 1, it's already subdividing. For example, if I hide the real-time view by clicking that monitor icon, you can see that one has taken every surface and split it once. Turn the preview back on. I think I might just leave it at 2 as a value. So each surface has been divided twice. And then especially, you know, a little further out, it does actually look quite smooth. Still want to caution that you don't overdo that, or you can have performance issues with Blender in your file sizes. But that can be effective to help you create things a little bit more organic. And I hope that trying out the modifiers in general starts to give you a lot more ideas of what it might be possible to do in your project. We're finished with the lab.